After what feels like a very, very long wait, The Last of Us Part 2 finally has a release date.
Here we go.
Not only that, but a lucky few out there have gotten to actually play a bit of it, including us here at Eurogamer. Turns out this is a game that feels, from the outset at least, very much like its predecessor, as it probably should. But this is a sequel that finds itself in a weird situation for a video game. As the follow-up to a story so universally loved, this was never going to be about putting fancy gameplay features on the back of a box. The Last of Us Part 2 is about staying true to the characters and the world that so many of us have been completely invested in. And yet, new features there are. None that completely flip the script, of course, but plenty that bring the world to life just that little bit more. So just before we get started, rest assured that there are no big story spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2 here, but we are chatting about new gameplay features and showing them off a little bit. So steer clear if you want to go into the game totally fresh. And top of the list of new features, from the demo we played at least, is dogs.
Hold up, wait. Dogs?
Yeah, dogs, but maybe don't get too excited. These dogs aren't here for cuddles, but to make your life very, very difficult. They track you down, tracing your scent, visible via a trail when you switch to the game's listen mode, and slowly trapping you in. When a pup has entered the field of play, you always need to think fast and be light on your feet, giving stealth in The Last of Us Part 2 a brand new tempo and giving enemy encounters a punchy, or rather bitey, new focus. Dogs are absolute nightmares to come up against, and at the same time, they're also where you'll cleverly see The Last of Us Part 2's emotional core bleed into its systems.
Because, just so we're all in agreement, shooting dogs is not nice.
And The Last of Us Part 2 lets you know that shooting dogs isn't nice or enjoyable. Each dog will be accompanied by its owner, who'll cry out in anguish if you put down their puppy, to prove that they're NPCs with their own emotions and separate lives. And to further reinforce the point, their own names, with NPCs calling out to each other in their private moments of chatter that you overhear while sneaking around. Basically, the dogs, as a new feature, are a triumph, but they're designed to break your heart every single time you come up against them. Though, since you do have no choice but to send them to some big old farm upstate that lets them chase rabbits all day but weirdly doesn't allow visitors, you should probably stay your course and take those dogs out as soon as possible, because if they catch your scent, you're in for a world of trouble. A firebomb tends to work quite nicely, though you didn't hear it from us. Moving swiftly on from puppy murder, is it weird how that's so much worse than actual human murder? The storytelling in The Last of Us Part 2 has evolved and expanded from its predecessor's already impressive vision.
I think we should go out like Eugene.
The snow-covered opening might feel familiar if you played Red Dead Redemption 2's intro. No spoilers, but there's an incredible amount of detail here, and in one set piece that sees you lost in a blizzard, a great piece of stagecraft. The first half of the two-part demo that some outlets, Eurogamer included, were allowed to play was taken from very early in the game, as Ellie has settled into what passes for everyday life in the world of The Last of Us. She's in Jackson, Wyoming, a town that functions as well as it can, with a modest population, a school, and a fragile sense of community. It's a slow, intimate introduction, reminiscent of The Last of Us Part 1's DLC episode Left Behind, as it focuses on the relationship between Ellie and Dina, their connection being the focus of the E3 2018 trailer. This is the night after that barn dance, with the two going out on patrol in the snow-frosted wilds beyond the limits of Jackson.
They're slow plodding along a narrow path as Ellie and Dina gently chat to each other. Their interactions are, as is typical of a Naughty Dog game, full of spark and tension, matched with phenomenal performances.
Remember, I don't want to have to shit you in the face. Oh, that's so sweet.
The world, with its settled post-apocalyptic beauty, sports a well-worn, starkly gorgeous aesthetic, and The Last of Us Part 2 wears it exceptionally well. The outskirts of the town are full of incidental spaces to explore, all told with detail and splendour. Break into a supermarket and thick volumetric clouds of spores are illuminated by rays breaking through barricaded windows. Get stranded in a snowstorm and the road signs shiver and shake in the bitter wind.
As a piece of interactive theatre, it is so effective, and as a continuation of the style, tone, and perhaps most importantly, the wild and uncertain inner truth of the characters of The Last of Us Part 2, it is spot on.
Although that all sounds rather poetic and quite picturesque in a way, it's the second half of the demo we played, taken from later in the game and after Ellie's own path to revenge has started, that's much more effective at showing off exactly where the changes in The Last of Us Part 2 come into play. It's an explosive, combat-filled sequence, and a reminder that The Last of Us takes a systems-heavy approach to its combat. The embellishments here are many and welcome. You can now go prone as well as crouching, strengthening the options when it comes to stealth. Ellie now has a shiv on her at all times, meaning it's often a more appealing option to go softly towards enemies, and then not so softly towards their necks. There's a dedicated dodge button, most useful when in close quarters combat as you duck and dive in fights that, while not exactly following that ubiquitous Arkham style, have a distinctive and effective choreography of their own. The options on offer, and the ease with which you can slip between them, is a little bit like, and bear with us here, playing as Metal Gear Solid 5's Snake, even if it's not quite as graceful.
Perhaps it's by design, as you do fumble with the controller in moments of panic, but there are some decisions, like mapping shoot and reload to the same button, which also goes for your dodge and sprint, that can feel a little bit strange. There's a weight to your actions, but also an unwieldiness, just like there would be in real life, I guess.
Fighting is not the be-all and the end-all of The Last of Us Part 2 though. At the end of the day, survival is just a means to an end. The real goal is not just to survive, but to live, thrive, and experience the world around you. The scope and scale of the world on offer here does feel significantly broader in Part 2 though, with the Seattle suburbs that house this set piece offering a big, wide, and open play space. And sometimes, luckily, not so open, when you need to duck into an abandoned house to try and get attackers literally off your scent. The area we played is a set piece where firearms are scarce and you're forced to rely on melee and a scant few arrows for your bow. And it brings the flighty dynamism of encounters into focus, with enemies moving to flank you and the onus being on making the most of the space available as you pick them off one by one. The AI is exceptional. The human enemies you're up against audibly coordinating with each other in a way that feels convincingly, terrifyingly human, which makes it even worse when you're forced to brutalize them, which, you feel, is the point, even if when seen out of context, like in various trailers for the game, it can be unsettling and confusing.
This is a game where headshots are rewarded with a glorious, meaty display of fireworks, but also makes you feel unbelievably guilty at popping that skull in the first place, allegedly.
The overriding feeling in combat though, which speaks to a problem with games in general rather than a problem with this particular one, is gratification. Booby-trap the doorway, quickly vault over the balcony, offload a scavenged arrow you stuck into a dog's belly, and then use a hammer to smash the last straggler's head. It all amounts to a very neat, outrageously lavish puzzle game. An incredibly grisly puzzle game, yes, but still one that's satisfying to solve.
Ellie!
That friction is something that's likely going to be worked through and explored more thoroughly in Ellie's Tale of Revenge, though it already gives the encounters a defining edge. These are grisly, powerful, messy, and emotionally charged things, and a neat reminder that, beyond the hype and expectation placed around so much of The Last of Us Part 2, there's a sturdy little video game that's had some thoughtful tweaks.
And it suggests that, even with the weighty expectations on its shoulders, you can always teach a naughty dog new tricks. Sorry. Awful puns aside, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to chuck it a like and subscribe for more videos from Eurogamer. A new one every single day, in fact.
Click the bell icon to be notified each time a new video goes live, but if not, no worries. Thanks for watching. We're off to hug pretty much every dog we can find now. Bye!
Those blind motherfuckers make my skin crawl. Let's make sure the rest of the building's cleared out.